Hi, everybody, and welcome to Arlington ISD's district update for Monday, April the 6th. We're coming to you today from Zoom. I'm Anita Foster with the Arlington ISD, joined by our superintendent of schools, Dr. Marcelo Cavazos. Dr. Cavazos, how are things going in your quarantine?
So Anita, very busy, and I'm here in my home office, and uh, very busy in the sense that we're still making sure that we're meeting the needs of our students and our staff and our families, including instruction, meals, and those devices and things like that. That we're making sure that our families have that as we continue our at-home learning process this week.
It's incredibly hard to believe that it's already been 3 weeks since we left school. And I don't think we could look over any part of our history and say that there was a 3 week period when school wasn't going to resume. And we don't know yet, right, when we might go back to school. What's your thought on that?
That's correct, Anita. We don't know when we're going to return to school. And based on our conversations and our discussions, that's still very much an unknown. And so, what we want to make sure is that students have the things that they need and the families have the things that they need to continue learning, continue the engagement, but also ensuring that our staff and our families are taken care of and that we're mindful of the stressors that do exist during this time. It exists for all of us, including our teachers and our staff, and certainly our families.
I think there was one strategy that the district undertook that met some criticism from folks, and that was the fact that we didn't start the instructional process immediately. We didn't have requirements, I should say. So, talk a little bit about the reasoning behind Arlington waiting until April the 13th to really start that process of recorded instruction.
Yeah, and so from our standpoint, Anita, it was important to adjust to this new learning environment and this new learning process. That adjustment, including making sure that our website had the information, first and foremost, had resources for students, that students and families knew where to obtain those resources, that students had devices, that families that didn't were not able to connect, that they were getting paper packets at the younger age levels, grade levels, making sure that those adjustments, that teachers were trained to enter now this phase of delivering the instruction to their students. So there's an adjustment period, and if we short circuit that adjustment period, Anita, our likelihood for success would be very low. We are in a good position as a district because we have been mindful of those systems and processes, including teachers checking in with students and their students, families, etc. But we're adjusting because we know that this is for the longer haul, and we anticipated that from the beginning that this would not be, 3 weeks of get grades because we're going to be back in school in a couple of days or something like that. It was going to be for a longer haul, and quite frankly, that's where we are today, making sure we're adjusting and fair and equitable to all families in this longer period of time.
You know, you bring up a really good point, and I think it is stunning to realize that we have distributed over 21,000 digital devices just in the last week and a half or so. That's how many students in our district had that need. But before the students are able to get on to the at home learning hub, our teachers needed to learn how to use it too. So we're in what's being referred to as phase two right now. Talk a little bit about the philosophy around teachers during phase two.
Well, several. One is to ensure that teachers also have a chance to adjust within their families and their family structures and their stressors, just like everybody else, that they're able to adjust, learn the new platform for some of them for the first time, make sure that the delivery of instruction when it does begin in the next phase is something that all staff and all teachers are prepared for. Those are adjustment periods. And while we want to make sure everything is done very quickly, we also know that there's appropriate, responsible adjustment so that it can be done successfully. And that's the phase we're entering next week.
Now, we know our parents have had a very heavy burden. I don't think there was anyone that would have projected when we left for spring break that we weren't going to come back to school anytime soon. And so for all of us, it's been a massive change, a very sudden change in everything about our infrastructure, about our daily routine. Everything is disrupted. For those parents that have concerns because they're essential workers and they're struggling with trying to work their regular jobs and now have this responsibility for teaching, what would you say to bring some comfort to those families?
So there's first and foremost an abundance of resources on our website that allows students to engage in learning activities and learning structures that are on our website, and they are resourced there for everybody to use. I would say that be patient. Be patient with the students. Be patient with the children in their adjustment. They have our 60,000 plus students have the same adjustment period requirements that we all do in that learning. So be patient with their engagement, with their motivation and things like that, but be persistent, right? Be persistent in accessing the at-home learning hub, in ramping up, in ensuring that next week when the teachers are directly instructing their students, that the students are engaged, that they have what they need, that they have the time, they have the resources, they have the connectivity that they need to engage. But as with the advice that we and every update that we've done since this, Anita, we have stressed patience, right? Patience for staff, patience for our community, et cetera. I think we have to have patience for our students as well and make sure that they're prepared for this because this is a change. And when we're used to a routine as adults, the students are used to routines as well of going to their school, being with their friends, of having certain milestones in their school year, and that's all been disrupted. And so, as we adjust properly and responsibly, we know that the likelihood for success is greater.
Now we're about to enter into phase three of the at-home learning hub. And I've seen a lot of chatter on Facebook from parents talking about grades. And they're concerned that they're not going to be able to help their children achieve the level of learning and grades that they would if they were in the classroom. What will look different, or what do you think might look different with the grading process?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Nita. And we've gotten a lot of input from our teachers or staff, our counselors, principals, et cetera, to make sure that we are also proportioned in that and that we're also mindful of those things. So, this week we will be announcing the standards for grading and the standards for GPA and things like that. But what I'll tell you is that it's our expectation that we are going to make sure we're, number one, reasonable, but also that we take a longer view of a student's performance. And what I mean by that is ensuring that the decisions about promotion, about retention, about credits for the high school, for example, that those are done with a longer view of a student's performance, not just this time period when we're closed. This time period when we're closed is going to factor into that decision, but we want to make sure that we are seeing the entire student and their body of work besides just these closure weeks. Because we know that if we focus or hyper focus on these closure weeks as big determinants for students' promotion or credit or retention, that those are big decisions that require us to take a step back and look at a student's entire performance, as well as which students would benefit from further intervention and which students would also benefit from some extended online in the summer opportunities so that they don't fall behind and so that they can get their credit and also be promoted to the next grade level. Those things are a retooling of our system, and it's a refocus and a reframing of how we make these decisions, but we have to be mindful of that. So I do anticipate that this week we will be laying all that out clearly for parents and for students, and with a lens of equity and a lens of understanding that during this closure, there were periods before this semester, 4, 6 weeks, that informs our decision about a student's overall performance, which quite frankly is what we're going to be probably our biggest task towards the end of the year, is making those determinations of a student's overall performance for this school year that we know has been disrupted.
It definitely has. And I just remind everyone and myself on a regular basis as well that it's only been 3 weeks. And in 3 weeks, the At Home Learning Hub was completely created from the ground up. It did not exist, right, Dr. Cavazos?
That's
We
right.
did not have that instrument ahead
It
of
didn't.
time.
That's right. It didn't exist, and it has been built upon and continue to evolve into what the phase that we're entering now. Again, I'm very proud of our staff and our teachers and our curriculum staff in particular for designing and standing this up as a resource and a tool for parents and the students ultimately, because it took a lot of effort and a lot of mindful strategy related to even teacher training, teacher preparation, and ultimately the students and their outcomes.
Well, one of the major topic areas we want to drill down into today is one that's of concern to our class of 2020, our graduating seniors. There's a lot of emotion around what happens to these kids. Do they get to walk the stage? Do they get to be with their friends? Do they get to say goodbye, to celebrate their accomplishments? And I know this is something that you've been working really hard on, and you have an update. So, where are we at in this beginning discussion around graduation?
Yeah, so Anita, thank you for the question. The graduation of a student and that ceremony, but also that accomplishment and that milestone is tremendously important. And it's important to me, and I know it's important to the families and our staff and our students ultimately. So we've been working very diligently to be mindful of gathering input about our next steps with graduation and that in particular graduation. So we had a meeting with high school principals, some senior staff members, and some student leaders from each of the high schools. It was a Zoom meeting. I have the fortunate opportunity to meet with the student presidents once a month. We have lunch, and they give me a good amount of feedback every time. And so we invited them to a virtual meeting and included the principals. We asked them some specific questions, such as, when is it too far out to have a graduation? If we can have a graduation convening, when would that be appropriate in terms of a month in terms of what we're allowed to do? A lot of that, Anita, as you know, will be guided by what we are allowed to do based on the CDC recommendations and our county and city orders and things like that. But all that to say that we've gotten some very good input from our student leaders and our principals and our senior staff. And our next step in that is that we want to get the input of all our seniors. So we will be rolling out a survey for seniors, the class of 2020, to fill out and to give us their perspective, their opinion about graduation, about virtual graduation, which we've heard a lot about, and not may or may not be something that students feel is something that they want. But we want to hear their voice. They have invested years and years in our school system and in education. And for this important moment, I think we take our time, we hear their voice, and then we come back with a good decision. Some of it will be, led by what we're allowed to do, but we have some control over the timing, how far out into summer or into fall, or options such as those that we would have a graduation. It is important. It was an important milestone for all the adults, for me, and it's a memory that lasts a lifetime. And we should take great care in making that decision. And that's my commitment, that we're going to get input, we're going to take great care in that, and we're going to have a celebration one way or another with our students that's appropriate to their milestone.
And I do hope that parents will hear that. I know moms especially have just been really emotional about it, and I get it. I cry right along with them. Because we all have memories of your best friends from high
That's right.
school and graduation night. So I'm so pleased to hear that there's a group, especially a group involving students, that's going to help shape their own destiny here. So I think that's really amazing. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, we have a lot of folks that might be watching that moved here over spring break. That happens a lot in school
That's
districts.
correct.
Families look for an appropriate time to move their kids. Maybe it's a job change or something like that. And they move to Arlington over spring break. And we have not been open or as you mentioned, we've been disrupted a tremendous amount since then. So enrollment for folks that might have moved in or moved across a county line has not been available until now. What's going on with the enrollment process?
Yeah, and so enrollment, even getting clarification from the state as to how we are able to enroll students and provide services to them. You're right, Anita. In Arlington, we have a good amount of mobility, and so students are enrolling at different times of the year, including right now, wanting to enroll. So we have now launched our enrollment process online, and we will have staff that will help walk families through that enrollment process, understanding that in the I would say the old way, but that's just been several weeks, right? You used to have to come to the school and deliver documents and things like that. We have that all online, and we will walk parents and families through that process. But the bottom line is, if you're in Arlington and you're a student and you need instruction, and we want you to have instruction, we would like for you to enroll in our school district, and we will then get you in. Make sure you have access to Canvas and things like that. Make sure you have support from a teacher, which is coming now in phase 3. Make sure you have that communication as to your well-being with socially and emotional services that we have. So we want you to have the full breadth of our services. And so if you're ready to enroll, and students are, because we've gotten that feedback, and I know you have, Anita, then we are now able to enroll students now in our school district during this period.
Okay, so enrollment is open for those that are in the Arlington ISD. Now we have registration coming up for something different, and this is exciting. We were really pumped. We were going to open registration for the first full day pre-K for 4-year-olds on April the 1st. We have not been able to do that yet, but it's coming soon so that our little learners can get registered. Tell us about pre-K and what's coming up in that arena.
Yeah, so we were, before this crisis, we were going to open up full day pre-K registration for fall of 2020 for August. And so we were going to open it up now in the spring, have full day pre-K roundup and things like that. With this disruption, we're going to plan B, which is we're still going to open it up, and we want 4-year-olds and their families to get services from Arlington ISD. Our full day pre-K, which we're implementing for the first time in Arlington, thanks to House Bill 3 and those efforts. Full day pre-K begins in August, and we want our 4-year-olds and their families to take full advantage of that, those that are eligible. And so we're going to open up that process here in, I think, 2 weeks. Anita, is that right? A couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yep, and we're going to open that up, and we're going to ask families to register, but we're also going to ask families who perhaps don't have a 4-year-old, but know someone who does have a 4-year-old or will be 4 years old and will be eligible for full day pre-K. We want them to also take advantage of this time. What this time does is it reduces hopefully another part of that stressor, which is it gets you enrolled and registered in school for August, and you can do it this semester.
Well, you've mentioned the fact that we have been disrupted, that there are stressors that impact families, and we recognize that too. I don't think there's any way to go through a global pandemic, a crisis, as we're going through, and it not impact families in very different ways. The district has established some social, some tools, some emotional tools to help families begin to cope. How important is that, not just for our students, but for their families and our teachers too?
Yeah, so it's critical because we know that this is not only a stressful time, but an emotional time. Anytime our routine gets disrupted, it's a change process, and some people handle that really well, and other people struggle through a change process, especially when it's something that has yet a known time frame. And so, because it is, we'll see, and we don't know how long we're going to not be able to come back to classes, it creates that anxiety. And so we want to be mindful. We have a hotline, we have counselors, we have support staff that can help families, students, parents through that, as well as our staff. As this continues into more weeks, we know it gets more stressful, and there's more anxiety. There's effects to the economy, to the workforce, etc. And we want to make sure that we do our part because we want engagement and instruction to continue and for students to have a sense of a normalcy through that process. So if you want a new habit, it's the habit of online learning for our students. And a new structure, we'll be publishing, Anita, and you know this, a schedule, a recommended schedule for phase 3 and things like that. That can be a new structure for our students that many of them really will need during this period of time as it continues.
That's something our counselors have talked about a lot during this transition, if you will, from traditional classrooms to the computer classroom, is that establishing routine is important. But it's not something that had to be done immediately. We had to allow ourselves, our teachers, children, everyone the opportunity to adjust. But now would be the time to start building those routines. So I'll just remind everybody that if you do want to reach out, you want to talk to somebody about your emotions or how to help your child cope with their emotions. Those numbers are available. You'll see them on your screen. You can also go to our website, aisd.net/coronavirus, and you'll find a page on coping with emergencies that will be there. I also want to remind people about the student meal plan. Now, that was something we started. Let's see, we closed schools on March 13th, and we started our first day of feeding on March the 16th. So how is that going, and are people taking advantage of that?
Yeah, so Anita, so more and more people are taking advantage of that. I think we're up to 14,000 individuals or meals that we're handing out. And of course, that's times 2 because there's a breakfast component that's handed out as well. More and more people are taking advantage of that. It is something that we know is a need in our community, and we want to make sure we try to meet that need. I want to thank our food services staff because as the weeks progress, this becomes even more and more tiring and stressful for them because this is a routine that is of high volume and a lot of people that are coming for the meals. Again, our food service staff has done an outstanding job. I think we added one site, Blanton Elementary, to make sure we can handle some overflow in that part of town. But our staff is doing an outstanding job, and we want people to take advantage of that meal service. We want 18 and younger to take advantage of that because we know that that's an important part of a healthy way to continue your learning and your engagement with instruction.
Yes, kids learn better when they have a full stomach for sure. Well, Dr. Cavazos, I know we still have a number of questions that we haven't answered yet, but we're working on issues every single day. So different departments are taking care of different components of trying to basically re-engineer the business of education practically overnight. So I just want to thank you.
We know that this is something that we can get through. We have that commitment and we have that ability to do that. It'll continue to evolve, but I have full faith that our staff will get us through this and our community and our students through this. And I do encourage everyone to stay home, follow that advice, heed that advice, stay well, and engage in learning and make that part of a normal routine so that students can continue their progress and ultimately be healthy.
Very good. So if you guys have any questions or things that you're still concerned about, just email pio@aisd.net and one of our members of our team will get back with you. Dr. Cavazos, thank you so much for joining us. I know we still have a long road ahead, but we have made a lot of headway. And I just want to remind everybody that our website has a lot of information, very helpful tips and tools for you at aisd.net/coronavirus. And I echo your sentiments, Dr. Cavazos. I just wish everyone good health, good social distancing until we see you on our next district update.
Thank you, Anita. Thank you so much.